Good morning. We're on another day of working on our barn owl, and I've just been trying to heat it up here and then smoothing the forms. I got very little done since my last session because I had so much to do, but I've got the basic forms and they're measured out. I use the heat gun because this is very, very hard clay. And I'm out here in a cool setting in my garage. It's nice enough if I don't open the garage, but the clay gets really hard. So I'll show in a minute how I've measured all the major forms up. And I've changed the base just a little bit. The base is something, it could be anything you want, but to me, it should be somewhat creative. But I give a general setting for the base in the first place because this sculpture has no armature. And as I start to detail it out, I'll cut even more from underneath it. Cut that away, and yet I want the weight of the clay to be supported. So this is a heat gun, of course, and you have to be very careful when you use it. I just use it so I can smooth the surface, and I use the gloves so my hands won't get burned, and it also keeps the strength. I don't have the strength of some people for this, so it allows me to really push without hurting my fingers. So I'm about to really start to go into the inner forms. Excuse me. All right. So you can, excuse me, sort of see where that is at this stage, and then compare it to the guide. Let me see who's on. Hello. There's a lot of disadvantages to having an armature, in my opinion, because if you're going to have something made into a mold, it has to be cut up usually, especially depending on how complex it is. You have to cut the sculpture like you're going to cut the head off, for example. Well, suppose you have a big piece of metal going up into the head. Now you've got to, cut that. And it's a lot easier if you have a shape that's self-supporting, and then you can take a tool, maybe like that. You can see this. It's a wire. And then the other one I have is pretty cool because it's a really strong, I need to get new cable. It's almost cable for that. And then what you can do is cut off the pieces precisely for mold making, and you're not running into that challenge of, gee, how do I get this cut apart now? A lot of people make a sculpture and then go, uh-oh. And this is on a piece of Formica turntable that's homemade. But when I'm done, I'll use, we'll use this method and just cut it right off the base. So, oh, this one, huh? Well, this looks like, this is much less strong, but these are old and I need to replace those wires. A lot of my tools are kind of old, and I just purchased some new ones from sculpturedepot.net. They're up in Loveland, and they have a great group of tools that are really strong stainless steel, and you attach the top with an Allen wrench, and they're called Glyptic tools. So I'm waiting for my shipment of Glyptic tools. I'm excited about that. But I thought this morning, since I'm kind of at a stopping point until I get my new tools, and I thought I would show some of the things. I worked for the gift and collectible industry along with Chuck Oldham, who's mostly the trainer on your videos, who passed away in 2014. And this is the kind of thing that we made in porcelain This was a big, big seller back in the 1980s, if you can believe that. It's called Moonlight and Platinum. And it's porcelain, it's small, it's one of those things that your grandmother might have on her shelf. But in the day, back in the day, it was a huge seller, Moonlight and Platinum, and has my name. The Franklin Mint produced it and put my name on the bottom, which was shocking at the time. Thank you. So, this kind of crazy stuff, but we made our living. Here's another piece that I made and this one's got some dirt on it, but this is from 1983, and it's a unicorn, and we did it for Bailey Banks and Biddle, which was a jewelry store. This was done in 1983, and we produced this ourselves. You can see it's very homemade porcelain, very thinly poured. So this was painted and fired in several layers, fired at 2400 degrees originally. And so we had to learn how to make sculptures that could be not just pulled out of a rubber mold, but pulled out of a plaster mold. And usually that meant lots of pieces. And so we had a lot of training and stuff that I don't even know what I'm going to do with anymore. But today, what you do is, and the reason for this super hard clay is after many years of doing this and wanting fine detail, because that was sort of what we were trained to do, fine detail, as opposed to just going all over, which softer clay would be better for that. But when you have assignments and then you have to get them in on time and they have to look like the people wanted them to look, this is where this discipline comes from. This was done for Danbury Mint. And this was my own piece. When it goes into porcelain, it shrinks almost 16% sometimes. So you have to sculpt higher and bigger, about 16%, than the final piece is going to be. So you have to adjust for that. You have to adjust for what's going to come out of molds. Like this isn't a rubber mold. These were different plaster molds that made all these little pieces. And yeah, they finally have them done in Asia. But those people are using time-old methods to do these. People think that you turn a crank and they kind of come out the spout, but these are all handmade, even when they're made in Asia. How the ribbons because it was, again, it's this hard clay we use. And so we turn things in, or even before we turn things in, we would mold our own work with rubber molds, and then cast plaster models into those molds, and then take those plaster models and make all those little pieces, and now send those in to be reproduced. So this is how, and let me see your other question. Yeah, it was tricky. As a matter of fact, because it was porcelain, if you pull it out of a mold and it bends a little bit, and it's made out of porcelain slip that you pour into a plaster mold. So you take that out. Now you're going to refine it and attach it to the porcelain slip, what they call greenware. And so now if you bend that while you're just trying to get the seam lines off, it has a memory. And when it fires, the horn came out crooked. I cannot tell you how many of these we had to throw away because of that crooked horn. So, it's just crazy to think of all the things that we had to learn to do that don't seem to have any real purpose now. But what we can do is learn the basics, and whatever material is the one we want, we can do. And so I'm going to move from this to another project, but I'll try to give a little bit of a lesson on plaster casting into a rubber mold, because that makes sense. Then we can refine the plaster even further. And now that plaster is remolded again, and it can become any medium you want, but you've got it refined so well that everything you wanted to appear detail-wise is just kept. And so every morning I'll bring some more things out that we did. I don't have everything in my possession. We did hundreds of pieces for the giftware industry. And it was like crazy. We worked all night. We had to be in on time. Let me see your other question. Oh man, there was a unicorn graveyard. Believe me, it was quite interesting. So right now, I'm kind of waiting for these new tools. I'm really excited, but I'll show you what I've done. And I know these kind of seem like, well, it's not enough information for a lot of people. It's not. And I'm going to add to the booklet. So I have this OWL booklet, but I'll tell you, I couldn't myself even get started without plans like this. I've always drawn up plans like this. So for example, I don't know if you can see this. I have this drawing and it's at life size and it's in my booklet. And, you know, I measure it head to tip. Just get that. You don't have to use, this is fancy. I got this from Sculpture Depot too. And this is a proportional caliper. So you can change the holes and point up or point down a sculpture. But as you can see, I'm pretty darn close here right now. So I've got that measurement in. Then in the back, I've got my measurement. Let's do this view. And I've got, let's see, the widest area. And I really need this kind of initial guide to get started. And then I'll start to map out the inner parts. And I'll use the same degree. Whoops. So I'm almost there. There's a little more width I can play with there, but it's pretty good. Let me see your question. Hi, Gold Rush. I'm good. All right, so I'm going to just do the tapered part sort of close to the bottom. Let me show you what I've done. It's, you know, you can kind of get an idea where you want to put it. And again, it might be a little wide right now, but I'm going to need that because I'm going to slice when I make these patterns. And that's taken from, I guess you can see my wall. I wish I could do close-ups, but look at all my pictures I found online. And so I just look at all the different views. But just looking at the views or looking at pictures or even looking at a live model without being able to take measurements, it's kind of like your perception is elastic. And then you don't know what's wrong. You start to go crazy. You go, well, it doesn't look right, but I don't know what it is. Most oftentimes, the head is too big in most of the sculptures that you see out there. And again, they don't measure. They think, oh, well, I have the talent. I can just do this. It's really, really hard without taking base measurements to get a handle on the proper proportion. And other people can see it. And you don't know what's wrong. They don't know what's wrong, but they know something's wrong. So anyway, so I used my heat gun because this is exceptionally hard. I'm going to carve out, let's see if you can see the big picture here. Carve out later this area. It's going to be see-through. You can see that. That's going to go right through. And let me see if you can see the legs. Probably point this down. There we go. Right now, I don't have it all the way through. It's a little bright. And that's because I want everything supported till I do all this. And then I will take it and cut it all the way through. And then either I'll do the mold or I might have a friend come over who's a mold maker and show us how to cut this up properly. Because then it could be made into bronze. I mean, if I put the mold on this, let me see your question. Oh, the pattern is at learnsculpture.org. So just go on there and you'll see the heading for the sculpture guides. And I say on there, and I might need to say more clearly, that guide, if you get it now just to get started, then I'm going to add to the guide, the PDF guide, and you can get the updated one, no extra. And that will include pictures in progress of what I'm doing here, and as well as other views that are they're missing until I do them. And then I can come back and give you those dimensions and views additionally. So right now in our life size, we have this, and it has a page, two pages where it shows you how to put them together. So you can just print it out on a regular printer. And then I have the life-size head views. And you can see those. You can measure. And what I'm going to do, and I forgot to say this, is when I get this all more mapped out, the different sections of the feathers, what I'm going to do is cut off, like for example, there's these bulk sections in here, and I'm going to measure them out. When I do that, then I'm going to cut this head off, and I'm going to put it on a stand, and I'm going to line it up, and you're going to see me use a tool that helps me line the eyes up. Another thing that drives us crazy is when one eye's up here and one eye's down there. I mean, it's a simple idea to learn how to line up the tool. Yes, al dente. Proportion is subtle, tricky, and oh my gosh, when you see a sculpture that you go, whoa, something's wrong, it's because they didn't take the discipline to just do that simple thing. I mean, you can go crazy and you can make it very stylized, but if the proportions are not right, it doesn't work as well. So it's really important. All the great old masters like Michelangelo, they measured everything. And all the stone sculptors, they were expert at using really sophisticated, by even today's standards, measuring tools. Tomorrow I'll bring down a book called Sculpture in Stone, which I like, which sort of gives an intro to how those completely subtractive works were done. Okay, yes. So it's just, I'm just going to continue working on that, and I'll probably sign off now, but tomorrow I'll be here at 7:30, and hopefully you'll see some major progress. I didn't get to work yesterday, and I'm waiting for my new tools. So yeah, take a look at learnsculpture.org, and there's a link there for the sculpture guides. And let me see your question. Yeah, I have a lizard, and I think I'm going to do gamble quail, which are these really cute little birds they have these cute little head pieces. And somebody's been begging me to do a gamble quail. So I said, oh, okay, I will. So after this, we'll do 2 projects at the same time. And maybe I'll get the lizard started earlier, because that's kind of fun, because it has textures, and maybe it's not as complicated as something like this, and we can go a little faster on it. The fun thing about doing reptiles, turtles, lizards, is the texture. You can do a lot of texture on the skin. And then if you want to color it and paint it, that's fun too. I mean, what the heck, it's your own stuff. So, don't ever worry about people criticizing, oh, you don't paint sculpture. I've heard that. Or that you have to have thousands of dollars to cast it in bronze. No, I mean, it's what's appealing and what's beautiful, and proportion will take you 90% of the way there, even if you do nothing else. So I will sign off right now, guys, and see you tomorrow morning, 7:30, coffee in hand. Bye-bye.